Hey Ethan, Noah, and Ella. I've just come back from a 10K run. Um, yeah, we had a good day today. We went to Barnett Marine Park and set up our tent, and you guys actually did some studying under the tent before eating hot dogs and then playing and fishing and catching crabs. So, I don't know if you're going to remember these things that you've done, but I'm definitely enjoying the time that we have to spend together. And so today what I wanted to do is I want to continue on our 5-part series with part 2. Just to refresh your memory, this was my 5 secrets to life, and part 1 was this world is not your friend and it does not want you to be happy. Therefore, do not chase after the things of this world, and do not let this world dictate to you what your passion and your goals should be. So just, if you want to hear that, just click on part 1 of this. But today we are going to continue on with part 2, and part 2 goes like this. Your heart is the core and the center of who you are, and everything flows out from your heart. You cannot hide what is in your heart. So it is very important for you to take the time and the energy to make sure that you have peace and joy in your heart. As a Christian, we are taught and we know that Jesus does not look at the outward appearance of a man, but he looks at our heart. And this is a fortunate thing for us, because there is nothing that we could do to save ourselves. If there was, it would negate the need for a God. And yet, we work so hard and try so hard sometimes to do things all by ourselves. And so often we ignore and we push aside what is important, what is at the core, and that is the condition of our heart. Let me give you an example. This is a picture of my very first car that I bought with my own money. It was a car that I really treasured and took care of. But let's pretend that this car had a problem. It was making some sort of clunking noise, which it wasn't, but let's pretend that it did. I could sit there and paint the car and wash the car and put on new stickers on the car and do all that I wanted to the outside of the car, and it still wouldn't stop the clunking noise. Because what I would really have to work on is to open up that hood and take a look at the engine of the car. No matter how much I worked on the outer appearance of the car, what keeps that car running smoothly and well is the condition of the engine. And so in the same way in our lives, so many times we try to focus on the outward appearances, things that really don't deal with the core of the issue. And when things don't improve in our life, or when our condition doesn't improve, we wonder why. And it's because we have neglected the engine of our lives, which is our heart. Why is it so important to deal with our heart? As I mentioned here, it's really difficult to hide what's in your heart. I mean, in the short term, you could put on a smile or cover over what's in your heart. But in the long run, it's really difficult to do. And we live in a time right now where mental health is such a struggle, and depression and suicide, is constantly bombarding us in the news, and it's always the most shocking because we think, wow, that person seemed to have it all together, and little did we know, on the surface they seemed so happy, and yet they couldn't handle life. It just became unbearable. So in the long term, it's very difficult to shade over and cover over what is really in our hearts. And so I want to focus on this message today of why it's so important to take care of our heart. I want to give you another very important example that deals with this as well. It is the idea of guilt in our lives, guilt and shame. These are two very real struggles that we go through in our lives. And many times this is what really sinks us as humans, is the unbearable guilt and the unbearable shame that we feel. Now, there is a difference between guilt and shame, and let me explain this to you because it really deals with what we're talking about in terms of the engine of our lives, which is our heart, and the surface material stuff. And so often we focus on the surface material stuff to try to get over our feeling of guilt, and we are left so unsatisfied, and we are left so unhealed, and we're wondering why. And this is where many of us succumb to the pressures and the disappointment that we feel. We all feel guilt. Guilt is from doing something wrong in our lives. Guilt is an action-based feeling. We feel guilty when we have done something wrong. And so very often we try to overcome our guilt with further actions of covering it up, or of hiding it, or sometimes even talking about it to friends of ours. And this is how we try to overcome guilt. Because it is an action, we take further action to try to overcome that guilt and to heal ourselves from that guilt. And what you will find is that this is kind of a lost battle. You are like that hamster, that gerbil that is within its own wheel and just spinning around and around and not going anywhere. And you end up feeling exhausted. And it's because we haven't really understood what that guilt does to us. Guilt eventually becomes shame. The difference between guilt and shame is that guilt is an action in our lives. It is action-based. Shame is more of an identity. It is who we are. We feel guilty because we've done something wrong. We feel shame because that is who we believe we are. And so this is where it becomes very important to deal with shame in terms of our heart. Who we are, our identity. There is a difference between somebody who has made a mistake and somebody who believes they are a mistake. There is a difference between somebody who has killed another person and somebody who believes they are a murderer. It is important to deal with what is in your heart, to take the time, the energy, the means necessary to really do some soul searching, to take time out and to really look within your own heart. And for me, this is where my faith in Jesus has become so important, because I have long searched and tried many different things to find that healing and reprieve from my heartache and my guilt. And ultimately, what released me from my shame, from my identity of being a victim to becoming a victor, was when Jesus gave me a new heart, a new identity. And so today I really want to stress the importance of understanding that sometimes it's not good enough and it's not enough to just put on makeup or to keep ourselves busy or to find other things or habits or lifestyles that will take our minds off of what's in our heart. But we need to open up the hood and really look at the engine to our lives, which is the condition of your heart. So what is the practical application of this? You know, one of your favorite fruits growing up, Ethan, Noah, and Ella, was mandarin oranges, tangerines, gyul in Korean. And I used to buy them by the boxes. And, you know, when I bought the box and I would bring it home and we would open it up, you know, the top layers were always fresh and fine. But it was when we got down to the bottom, there was always mold. There was rotting oranges in there. And what I noticed was all it takes is one rotten orange left untouched, and it quickly spread to the rest of the box. And our heart is kind of like that. If we leave our hearts unattended, then what we will notice is this: therefore, do not let anything rotten or spoil in your heart, because before you know it, it will spread and it will become so difficult to treat. In fact, you may not recover from it, whether it be bitterness, anger, hatred. You have to take the time and energy now to deal with it. And you may not be able to do it on your own, but search. Again, I'm not telling you that Jesus is the right way for you. I'm telling you that Jesus was the right way for me after many years of searching. For some people, you know, they might find that reprieve in a relationship. They might find it in some sort of religion. They might find it in some different avenue. The one advice that I can give you is it's important to find it in something that will be unchanged, unmoved. Because if you find it in a person, what happens if that relationship doesn't work out? Or what happens if, you know, that person is taken from you? You will be wrecked. What happens if it is upon a situation and that situation changes? Once again, what you thought was your rock and your foundation will shift, and all of a sudden you'll be shaken the one thing for me that I have found that does not change, it is the rock upon which I can stand firmly and be rooted upon without having any doubts that it will not be shaken, is my relationship with Jesus. So this is where I turn to for healing in my heart. And I hope that for you, you will be able to find whatever it is that will bring you peace and joy in your hearts, so that the engine of your life will run smoothly. And you have to do this on a regular basis, an annual checkup. Don't let your heart go unmonitored for too long, because sometimes we're not even aware of the little mold that has started in there, the mold of anger, hatred, bitterness that will quickly spread, and before you know it, it has become our identity. So once again, guilt is based upon actions. Shame becomes your identity. Make sure that your identity is healthy and clear by keeping the state of your heart in a positive, healthy, growing environment. I hope this helps you, and for anybody else that can take anything positive from this. I love you. I'm very proud of you guys. Until next time for part 3, peace.